This is the Toft Studio. Most student studio journeys begin here. It's what I would describe as a year one studio, but it has to be said that many of our students do hang on to it and keep using it right throughout their courses. The main aim is to break the fear of the technology. It's not overly complicated, it's accessible, yet there is still enough to learn and consider to set you up for more complex studios further down the line. It's a big favourite with music production students, whether they're creating their own music or recording bands. Central to the control room is the Toft mixing console along with the Quested and Genelec monitor speakers. There is of course software and hardware. We could be using Pro Tools, Logic or Ableton, whatever works for your project in here. In addition to the main software, there's a range of plugins and virtual instruments, such as FabFilter, Isotope or Native Instruments. All big names in pro audio you'll become more familiar with as you progress through the course. This is the Neve 51 Studio, a big hit with our audio engineers. Still very much a year one studio, but I would say a step up in terms of quality for recording, yet still configured in a way that makes it accessible and easy to learn. If recording is your thing, and you may well find out that it is while you're on the course, this is a great place to do it. The focal point of the studio is the Neve 51 series console, a quite sought after vintage piece of analog gear. It's the perfect interface for capturing the character of whatever you're pointing your microphones at. That classic Neve sound makes it so much easier to make your own recordings feel and sound more professional. Artists like David Bowie, Led Zeppelin, right through to people like Dave Grohl and Mark Ronson have taken advantage of that Neve sound in some of the biggest selling tracks ever. Okay, it's quite old you might say, a really fair question when it feels like the world's all about digital technology now. There's no denying digital is vital to what we do here, but it's not the whole story. We still need to be able to capture and play back the sound, and this is done in the analog domain. So in studios around the world, analog is very much alive and kicking, whether that's through classic consoles like this, or the monitors and speakers we all use. This live room serves both the Toft and the Neve 51 studios. As you can see, it's quite large. You can fit a whole band in here, or at least the drums for a project. Or maybe your project is less about that, more electronic production focused. Even so, you may still want to record vocals or live percussion. This is the Custom Pre-Studio. One of the first things to note in here is there is no central mixing console. All of our studio designs echo real studios out there in the world, and this has been an increasingly popular model over recent years. The concept is, rather than having a multi-channel mixer where all of the channels effectively do and sound the same as each other, here we have a selection of custom preamps that allows you to construct your own signal paths matched to whatever it is you're capturing or processing. The ability to try and compare different pieces of equipment, assess their individual characteristics and sound is an important part of your learning. In here, we have our flush-mounted ATC monitors. Combined with an acoustically designed space, it really is an outstanding and precise sound for producing and mixing your work. The Custom Pre has its own dedicated live room. It's a tight and crisp sounding space that works well for most instruments, but is a particular favourite for percussion and vocals. This is the Neve VR, our largest music studio and a big favourite with all of our sound students, whatever their discipline. As you can see, the studio is dominated by hardware and this huge 60-channel Neve VR console. I guess if you're seeing something like this for the first time, it's easy to be intimidated by so many channel strips and pots. Our students, by the time they reach here, have passed their driving test in most of our other studios. They've experienced a wide range of technology. So although this is a step up, it's not an insurmountable leap. Things to note about the Neve VR Studio are its size and space to create, its sophisticated acoustic design, excellent hardware and monitoring. It's all driven by a powerful Pro Tools HDX system. This is running on one of our Mac Pro machines. So all of the other software platforms we use at Futureworks are available in here too. This studio has perhaps the largest selection of outboard processing, or hardware as we call it. It's a mixture of original classics alongside custom-built units. If I can take one example, the URI 1176 compressor, this is an industry favourite and is often used to control the dynamics or inevitable fluctuations in volume in a vocal performance. Its classic status comes from the fact you can apply substantial control over sometimes quite sudden volume changes, without negatively affecting the sound. In fact, if anything, it sweetens it a little. Below it, we have our own custom-built version of the same unit. You never know, you might need to use two. As I've commented on in some of our other studios, the older analog equipment, the classic pieces of gear, are becoming more rare and in some cases more expensive to buy and maintain. So what we often see now are software equivalents known as plugins. Here on the screen in Pro Tools, you can see Bomb Factory's BF76, effectively a software equivalent of the 1176s in the rack. If you've been fortunate enough to have had a go on the real thing, and you know how and where you might use it, your use of software like this is enhanced. It's all part of the learning. This is the D-Control 5.1 Studio. It's the first of our audio post-production facilities, and sometimes the first time our students have worked with sound and picture together. It's named after the Icon D-Control console, which you can see here, and also the fact we have a 5.1 surround setup in here. It's quite a spacious room with a nicely dampened acoustic that replicates a cinema feel, ideal for smaller scale sound to picture work or as a mixing room for stereo or surround music projects. It's a big favourite of our game and interactive audio students. This is often where they come to create sound and music for games. This studio is introduced in year one, but it tends to be somewhere students return to throughout their course. At first glance, there is quite an intimidating looking console to get to grips with, but I have to say, that's not a barrier to getting started in here. Once you can turn on the computer, you can run everything from the keyboard and mouse. And then as you grow in confidence and experience, you'll find you'll engage more and more with the surface itself. If you want to dig deeper, you can. It's a lot more than just a physical interface for the software. Many of our students over recent years have really taken to sound design, both on the courses and as a career. And this studio is where most of them got started. This is the S6 Cinema Studio, our largest post-production facility. Most of our students come to us with producing and recording music as their main interest, and you can do that on our courses. But often, along the way, normally about mid-year two, a significant number develop a passion for designing sound for games or even feature-length films. This is why we have the S6 Studio for those larger scale film projects. This is quite a spacious studio with a cinematic acoustic design. The acoustic screen allows for HD video projection, plus houses the front speakers in a 7.1 surround system. At the heart of the studio is the Avid S6 console. The Avid S6 is a big player at the highest level in this industry. You'll find it installed standalone or embedded in some of the largest film mixing systems out there. For our students to be able to learn on and mix their project using this level of technology really sets them apart. It's all driven by a powerful Pro Tools HDX system, capable of handling some of the largest projects in the building. But it's not all about mixing. The studio connects through to the Foley Studio next door for creating those custom-made effects and additional dialogue. This is the Foley Studio. It's where you might come to record your own sound effects for a game soundtrack or a film. Finding the right sound for your project can be tricky, especially really specific sounds like clothing movement, handling devices, or small mechanical noises. You might find something suitable in one of our sound effects libraries, but it can be time-consuming to edit and manipulate it to fit. Sometimes it's quicker and better to create your own. We have shelves and boxes full of useful props, most collected and donated by staff and students. These can be old broken children's toys, watches, clocks, phones, anything that creates a noise and can usually be held near a mic. This room is fully connected into the S6 Cinema Studio next door, but it can and often is booked separately and used as a standalone space. It's one of our most popular studios in the building. This is the SSL Studio, one of our most important music studios. It's a big hit with our music producers, especially those that like to work in electronic genres. Whereas our Neve studios have that organic sound, the SSL is clean and sharp, really suited to the precision sound needed to capture raw synth and electronic tones. That precise sound is largely attributed to our SSL console. And if you add in the excellent Barefoot Studio monitors, a very modern speaker technology and no doubt a future classic, then you have a spacious and up-to-date studio design that would grace the pages of any mix magazine. There is also a broad range of hardware in here, from industry standards like the Focusrite 430 and the TubeTech compressor, alongside a collection of custom-built processors for both recording and mixing. One thing the SSL boasts is our most powerful live space. Being situated right at the end of the building seems to add something. It has a deeper resonance which really adds weight and power to instruments such as drums and guitars. This is the VoiceOver Studio, perhaps our smallest studio space, but nevertheless essential to some of the work we do. Within the studio itself is a purpose-built ISO booth, optimized for voiceover recording. If you're studying sound and music for games, for instance, you'll know that dialogue is a big deal, and capturing that upfront, crisp-sounding vocal performance is crucial. Inside the booth, it's all set up for recording with the industry-standard Neumann voiceover mic and a screen for video playback. The video playback in here is particularly useful to give some context to help the voice actor get the right performance. This is the Mastering Studio. It's one of our most advanced post-production facilities, but in this case, it's music post-production. We're very fortunate here at Futureworks to have our own dedicated and fully equipped mastering studio. In my experience, that's not commonplace in education. Mastering is often the last stage in the production process before the consumer gets to download or stream your music. This studio reflects the unique blend of classic hardware such as our mastering EQ, optical and valve-based compressors, as well as high-end digital technology found in mastering studios around the world. There is specific software that can do everything from editing and processing to measuring loudness and creating bespoke delivery formats. This room is our most advanced in terms of acoustic design. It has to be our most critical space to take what is effectively an audio microscope to people's mixes, to hear and identify the inconsistencies so we can deliver music that works from weighty subwoofer-loaded car systems right through to earbuds. The centerpiece in this studio are the speakers. We are currently running Key 3 BXTs in here. Brand new speaker technology that delivers an amazing level of detail. Their natural extended bass response and clarity is just a level above anything else in the building. It's impossible to leave the mastering studio without mentioning the tape machine, our Studer A80. So where does older technology like tape fit into all this cutting-edge digital gear? To be honest, it doesn't very often, but when it does, it's a breath of fresh air. Some projects have only ever seen the digital domain. They've been created and mixed completely inside the computer, and they can easily begin to sound compromised if we start to pile on more digital processing in mastering. So on those rare occasions, running a track through tape can sometimes give new life to it, allowing us a bit more headroom for adjustment.